Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another entry in the NPR Chamber webinar series. This one's titled Causa Local, Access to Non-Traditional Capital. And Ana Maria Cintron, founder of Causa Local, will discuss different Kiva, WeFunder and Republic, different options for capital for your business to obtain capital in non-traditional ways. So before we get started, I just kind of wanted to let you know a little bit about the chamber. So I am the National Director of Small Business Development with the National Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce. Me and Ana, we partnered for a series of webinars. We have two more coming. The next one I believe is on December 14th, and then one on the 21st. So all that to say is we're gonna have a lot more of that coming in the future. In January, we have a nice lineup of stuff as well. So just be sure to visit our website, follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, that we can stay up to date of all the great webinars coming up. We have a lot of other great partnerships and a lot of new benefits and stuff for our members. So just stay tuned. In terms of today's presentation, we're gonna try to keep it as conversational as possible. Please utilize the Q&A section, ask your questions, and I will answer them during I'll be checking periodically, and Anna will as well. We'll be answering questions as the presentation goes. We'll try to keep it, we'll try not to go past 1 o'clock, just to respect everybody's time. So with all that, Ana Maria Cintron, co-founder or founder of Causa Local, show's yours.
Gracias, Joel. It's a pleasure to be here today. We're extremely excited. I remember when we started talking and we just, rapidly started saying all the things we were going to do. And then like 2 weeks passed and we were doing it. So honestly, thank you for that.
No, absolutely.
And thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to increase our partnerships and be collaborating with you today. And it's the beginning of many great things. So for those who don't know me, I am Ana Maria Cintron. I founded Causa Local. I'm going to talk a little bit about my history and how I got here, right? It's kind of like a wild ride. I am from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Ponce, and I came to UPR Rio Piedras, to study accounting and finance. And basically, I tried different things. I interned in different big companies, and I decided to start my career when I was like 21 or 22 as an auditor at Deloitte. And that's, when everything just started to create organically without me even knowing, right? So I worked in Puerto Rico and I worked in Miami for a while. Banking was basically one of the industries I was most focused on, and I really, really liked everything that had to do with loan file review, right? So what is that loan file review? And I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail because it's important, because that's how eventually I bumped into Kiva, that we're gonna talk eventually a little later. So I would be reviewing all these loan portfolios, and I'm like, okay, so this is how it works, right? You give money to people, people repay you, people are supposed to repay you properly because look at them, look at all these assets. But it surprised me that the repayment rate at that moment wasn't great, to be honest. Obviously, Puerto Rico has gone through many things, right? We've been for the past over 10 years. There used to be 11 banks or more, and now we only have 3. So, the island has gone through disasters, etc. And I was like, when people want to open a business, where do they go when they need money, right? Like if your uncle doesn't have money to lend you, or your family or your close ones, which is usually the people that lend to you in the beginning, where do you knock the door, right? And, a couple years passed. After 4 years at Deloitte, I decided I wanted to do something else, right? I started working at different local firms in Puerto Rico, that consulting firms, right? And that's when I started to work a little bit more with small business owners and just discuss the challenges that they were currently having in the island. So one thing led to another, and I bumped into what's Kiva, right? And I was blown away, right? Because they connect technology with trust, with capital, with people around the world. And then they help small business owners through 0% loans up to 15K. So I was like, is this even possible? And I took the phone and I emailed, I think, at the time, Justin and Johnny, which are now in WeFunder. But at the time they were leading Kiva and growing Kiva. And they were like, well, we usually work with different municipalities or government institutions or nonprofits. We've never just kind of worked with a person, right? But they were like, you know what, go ahead. If you want to grow Kiva as a person in Puerto Rico, try it out and see where, let's talk in the next 6 months, something like that.
So quick question.
Yes,
are you basically the first person to bring Kiva to PR? Like, was there any other organizations utilizing it? Or?
Well, the thing is, at that moment, they were trying to bring Kiva to Puerto Rico because a very random coincidence was going on, in the sense that there was this person I know that had worked with someone that now worked at Kiva. And at that moment, they were trying to grow Kiva in Puerto Rico, and they offered it to Foundation for Puerto Rico, but Foundation at that moment couldn't grow it. So, and then I go in and they were like, okay, then you take it, right?
Perfect timing situation.
I know. I think is honestly, like, at that moment, it just changed my life. I know it's a little dramatic, but I was a little overwhelmed with my work. I was working with local organizations, but I wanted still to do more. And and then it came about. And at that moment as well, sorry, my dogs are wild and they're making noise. I'm so sorry. At that moment, I contact Foundation. I get in communication with them. They're like, you know what, we can't do this right now, but go ahead, do it. They, then I knocked the door in Banco Popular, and they gave us like our first grant. It was a $12,000 grant, and then I took that money. I would use it for gas money and mileage, literally at the beginning. So on my free time, when I was not working at that moment, I was also leaving the corporate world and started working at Piodo 151. So that's when I said, okay, I'm gonna make a drastic change. I'm gonna start volunteering for this on my free time. And then I have to pay the bills, right? And I wanted it to be something that made sense. So Piloto, for those that don't know what it is, it's a co-working space that works with small and medium startups and business owners, right? So, that's how that journey started. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017. And literally, we just went to every event. We did things like this as well, and just talked about Kiva. At that moment, Causa Local did not exist yet. So you're like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, at that moment, it was the eggs, right?
Wow.
So then we I remember Isabel from Comprometidos. She was like, Ana, you have to think big. Like, you have to think big. And honestly, those words changed my mind in the sense that I was like, you're right, why am I not thinking big? Like, and the reason I say this is because it's so important when you're in like transitional moments, especially, to surround yourself with amazing people that have similar likes, right, or similar interests. Absolutely. Because one thing leads to another. At that moment, honestly, like, I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? I don't want to continue, working directly with accounting or consulting firms. Not that I didn't like it. I just knew I needed to do more and something else.
Yeah.
And then one day at 3 a.m. in the morning, I wake up, couldn't sleep, and I incorporated Causa Local. I incorporated Causa Local in 2018. That I remember.
That's amazing. It seems like the growth was just real grassroots.
It was really organic.
Yeah. Just getting in there, networking.
I founded a nonprofit. Wait, when did this happen? And I stayed very humble because it just happened, right? But at that moment, we already had impacted like 100 small business owners, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So we had like a lot of work, right, to talk about. We just didn't have maybe like the backbone. Right now, we count with the 501c3 federal, oh my God, I forgot the word, a benefit of being a 501c3. We went through that application. If any of you are listening to us, it's lots of people are like afraid of that. And honestly, it's not easy, dealing with all the paperwork, and you have to be really organized, but it comes all from your head. Like, it's just downloading information into a piece of document and answering questions. So then at that moment, we started literally growing Causa Local, and Causa Local kind of like absorbed all of the work we had done with Kiva. So we had already worked with up to maybe 100 small business owners, all types of industries, all ages. And it was really hard at first, and it still is. People don't believe that there's non-traditional access to capital like Kiva, where you can access up to 15K at 0% interest.
So here's on that exact subject, and that's kind of a question I had. So when we, at the onset of the pandemic, we were working closely with the SBA. We were guiding businesses through PPP and all that type of stuff. I wasn't familiar with you or Kiva at that time, and that's why I'm happy we connected. But one of the things we found is just such of a lack of awareness of other alternatives. Like, a lot of the businesses we work with, they're in their mind, the only way to access capital obviously is if you got an uncle with a little bit of money, or things like credit cards and stuff. And so what do you say to people like that who just aren't aware of what you can offer, what Kiva can offer? What do you say to a business like that who thinks, I got to max out my credit cards, it's the only way I know how to fund a business?
So. Or I have to go cashless. Like,
yeah.
I hear it all the time. Like, well, I've already used all my cash, I maxed out my cards, and now I need access to capital. Mm-hmm. I think there's like a super important mindset that we have to change. And it is that if you're a small business owner, at some point, right, unless you just want to have an expensive hobby, you have to have access to capital, traditional, non-traditional, whichever way, but you have to invest in your business. It's what makes sense, right? And right now, I think there's even like great opportunities to have access to financial instruments with great interest rates, right? Lots of people come to us and we're like, yeah, but Kiva maybe is not, I need more, right? And I'm like, look, access to capital is like school. You go from pre-kinder to 12th grade. You can't just jump from one grade to another, right? And many of them are also saying, I don't have access to the banking financial system, right? And I'm like, you know what, but maybe you have to start obtaining and growing so you can get that access. Right. Not everyone is meant to go initially to a bank or a cooperativa. For example, in Puerto Rico, they play an amazing role, but small business owners have to understand that you need to go by levels, right? So doing Kiva allows you to create credit, allows you to play with your cash flow, and if you invest that cash flow property, you can grow. Right. So I think that we see it every single day, and it's that mindset, and we have to change it. So many of you are probably asking, what is Kiva? Can you explain a little bit more in detail? So just imagine Facebook, but for small business owners. And it's a platform that you can, as a small business owner, you can connect with all these global lenders that you have never met in your life, and you will never meet probably. You will just communicate, and they lend you $25, right? And they don't receive anything in exchange, because it's their type of way to give back and support economic development in different places around the world, right? So if we go back 10 years ago, in Puerto Rico, there's been like a boom, right, with small and medium small businesses because of all the governmental layouts, private companies firing people or just leaving Puerto Rico. So you're like, either if you stay and you don't find a job, then you have to create a business, right? So I think that mindset has changed drastically. Like, I remember 10 years ago walking through Calle Loíza next to Condado, and it wasn't what it is today. Like, right now it's filled with young people and they're small business owners, and you can actually like walk around and just spend the day there, right? So it's something, it fills me with passion, because it's actually quality of life, not only right for Puerto Ricans, but for everyone that visits us, right? We want to grow tourism. If you want to grow tourism, then you have to have assets in your communities. So basically, Kiva, you go in, you complete an application, you basically download your business plan, right? It's not that you have to have like a super fine business plan, but it's the questions the application asks are related to, what is your line of business, how much income or expenses are you making, et cetera, et cetera. So that's super important for you to have in mind, right?
So real quick, so say I'm a business and I'm interested in Kiva. What do you think are, before I go ahead and proceed, what are some things maybe I should ask myself? Like what, before I go through that process, maybe what things should I get shored up or have ready beforehand to make sure that I'm a business that it would be, I guess, for lack of a better word, like investable for somebody,
Well, I think literally the first step is to contact the Causa Local or contact your local Kiva partner, because automatically we send you just like an informative email that has a link to a pre-application, right? Perfect. Where you can kind of like just describe, it doesn't even take like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You put some information and the system automatically tells you qualify for a Kiva loan. But it's basically income versus expenses, that you're registered, that you don't have criminal history, and you don't need credit, right? So because Kiva is used to help small business owners develop credit. Once you get Kiva and you repay properly, you create credit. If you don't repay properly, then your credit is harmed or lowered. That's something really important that's amazing in my opinion. And it didn't always used to be like that when Kiva started in the United States, right? Because Kiva is a global concept, but we belong to the wing of California. And basically they, at first you couldn't create credit, right? But then they incorporated that. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is amazing. Kiva's amazing, now it's extra amazing, right? But basically, you have to have your merchant's registration or some type of evidence that you're registered with your local government. And that's important, right? Because we want to invest in small business owners that want to grow. I have nothing against, like I mentioned, if you want to have just like a part-time thing and you don't want to get complicated, that's fine. But if we as Causa Local are going to move resources and time and people, we want to know we're working with people that really, they're hungry for it, right? And we have our strategies as well to identify those small business owners. Sometimes, honestly, we knock on the door and ask them, like, do you need capital? We've noticed what you're doing. It's amazing. Let us help you. We're actually working also with many different partners here in Puerto Rico that incubate small business owners, and they send us referrals, and we love those referrals because it's small business owners that are already educated. But going back to the application and the requirements, so it's very important that the evidence that you're registered somewhere. Basically, you can talk about your income and your expenses and the obligations you have. I've had cases where people are, they're starting from zero, but they have this other job that generates income, and they're willing to take a loan and start paying it with income from their job. And then, while the other job grows. And so I love that example because that's an example of what is an investment. When I started Causa Local, I did not start full-time. I started full-time last year because I was like, okay, I need to pay my bills and generate income and save money to be ready to make that move. So I think that's like one of the tips that I would give to any person that's listening to us. Don't think that, you start a business tomorrow and you're going to start making money. It's not going to work that way. It's going to take time. I'm a nonprofit. It took time. A business is basically the same thing. So, but and then the picture is very important, right? I'm going to be sharing a link to an example of one of our small business owners, right?
Here's a question: Is Kiva for-profit and nonprofits can both utilize Kiva? It's not limited to one or the other. Okay.
Yes. And I'm so happy you asked that question because most of people think that nonprofits can't have access to capital, which is totally not true, right? We calculate gains in a different way, but we need cash flow, right? So there's one example. The W School in Trujillo Alto. I don't know if you heard about them. Well, they did Kiva to be able to expand their classrooms, etc. So that's a perfect example, in my opinion, right? I'm putting in the chat right now
Yeah, no.
a
But I
link
love
to
the analogy that you said in terms of like being in grade school. You start in kindergarten and then you move up the ladder. And I think that that just kind of speaks to part of the reason you're on this webinar today. You said you connected with Isabel and she gave you good advice. We're partners with Isabel and Comprometidos, and it just kind of speaks to that ecosystem of just that you know everybody plays a role and we all kind of have to work together in that. And
Mhm.
I think that you are and Kiva and Causa Local is a key piece in that ecosystem. You play a role, and I think we all do it at some point. Regardless of what level of business you're in, there's somebody there to play that role. And I think
Yes,
that was
I
that was a
see it
great
like a
example.
ladder. I literally
Yeah,
see it like a ladder. It's and you go step by
exactly. Yeah.
step and you graduate and you go to the next phase. And by the way, I just shared a link to one of our small business owners, so you can see the Kiva profile. And when you open it, right, you can see that it's basically the application. By the way, there's certain things that in the application that you won't visibly see, but right now the first thing you see is the picture, right? So it's super important to have a really good picture. And I am super, stubborn with this because they're like, I don't want to show my face, etc. I'm like, look, Kiva is to be honest, for the ones that are able to access it, it's a very relaxed and flexible process, to be honest. And I think it's so important that, that picture, because you want the attraction of all the people around the world that are lending to you.
Right.
So, we're obviously we have underwriting processes and application process, but sometimes we add certain requirements because we really want to create a pipeline eventually, and we want these small business owners to be successful. If I allow them to use whatever picture they want, they're not going to be successful, and then they're going to get frustrated, and then they're going to be calling me last minute. And it just happens, right?
Speaking to that, so I'm not too familiar with the actual platform. So if you're a potential investor or somebody looking to, so you can basically go in the platform and kind of see all the different businesses looking for funding, and I guess they would have their picture and maybe like a pitch deck or whatever the case may be. Is that kind of how it's
yes, it's actually like when you go to Kiva.org, there's a section that says find a borrower, and you can find a borrower by country, by whatever other options you want. If it's a woman, a man, a type of industry, if you want, you can tailor your search, right, to fit your needs. And there's a lot of people, for example, sorry, not your needs, your wants, but there's a lot of people, for example, that support agriculture. So there's a lot, anything that's like related to agriculture, it funds super quick. Wow. So I'm also gonna share the link, Kiva.org. There's right up front, there's a section that says find a borrower, and you can find a borrower or you can apply. But for the ones that are trying to apply, I rather, they go through the Kiva partners, and they first get a small hand holding. It's an investment of like talking to our team, 30 minutes, understand the process, because in the long run, you can save so much time. Instead of you just like going in, complete the application, and then, okay, I'm missing all this information, and then we have back and forth. And, so I really, really want to emphasize that we want to assist you first. We want to help you also, because sometimes you're not ready for Kiva, right? But we're helping right now small business owners get ready for Kiva, do Kiva, repay properly, and then continue to grow with other platforms. And something very important is that if you receive the 15K, right, you have 36 months to repay.
Okay.
So during COVID, we issued a few more moratorias.
Yeah.
People received the money, and they didn't have to start repaying until like the 7th month.
Okay.
So that was like an extra benefit we did. That benefit is always there for agricultures. So it's important to know, right? Like no matter what agricultures can receive the money, and then they start paying on the 7th month.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and this Kiva evaluates character, right? So there's a couple of questions related to your character, to the impact that you're working in your community, right? So their financial requirements are very flexible when comparing, making comparisons with banks or cooperativas. But at the same time, they look at your character. right? Because
right.
they want to help people.
Yeah.
In Puerto Rico, in the beginning of the 1900s, that was called sociedades, when lots of people would put money in un pote
Mm-hmm.
and they would know each other and trust each other and invest in each other.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's what Kiva is doing, but in a global way, and giving access to globally, right? That's so important. So basically the process is really simple, like I mentioned. It's important also that when you provide your financial information, you're honest, because Kiva does review how are your credit cards, how many loans do you have, and at the end of the day, we don't want to harm you with another loan, right? If you cannot repay what you currently have. So it's something I always mention as well, to have in mind, because it's one of the things we look at. So basically, financial information, incorporation documents, character, content, a really good picture, and mini training from us.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It seems like that's the most important thing, is to speak with you and your team first, get you, because a lot of business aren't ready. They kind of see the dollar signs, but they're putting the cart in front of the horse. And I think that they could save a lot of time and aggravation by speaking with your team, making sure they're prepared. And I think even after they graduate from Kiva, I think that'll help them and kind of position them for other for obtaining capital elsewhere in the future. So no, that's wonderful. I'm learning a lot too. Like I said, I was, like we spoke before we've been speaking, that I was aware of it, but I wasn't familiar with it, and I just see it to be a great benefit to a lot of our small business members. We get it all the time, is they're looking for funding, they're looking to start out, so this can be a wonderful avenue to explore. So wow, so that's my 2 cents on that.
Yes, I feel like it's the first step, and I do want to review a couple of other details in the application that it's important for you to have in mind. So besides the picture, right? And by the way, whoever is taking notes, relax. I can send you all this information by email. Do not have to take notes or be like stressed out with that. We have
we'll be sharing the recording too. Yeah.
And we have checklists that we send to our small business owners, so they can start organizing themselves before they apply. So when they sit down in the computer, the process is like 2 hours. So we, besides the picture and the things that I mentioned, it's very important also that you know what you're going to use your loan for, right? So we want to, when we talk to small business owners and we ask them, okay, you want 15K for what? And they're like, I don't know. Then, that's kind of like a red flag. And that is just telling me you're not ready to take a loan. Because even if it's such a flexible loan, you still need to know what you're going to use it for. We want to help you invest in your business so you can grow as well, and make sure, you repay that loan. Until now, we count with a repayment rate of over 87%. And we're extremely proud with that. And it's, it's been a ride to get to that percentage. And not and not lower it, because obviously we've had disaster behind disaster behind disaster. So it's very important that when you approach us, you ask us all the questions, you listen to and you read the information we give you. We also talk a lot about the debt to income ratio in the application, because like I mentioned, we don't want to give you more debt that you cannot handle. And if you already have your credit cards, paying a lot of interest, then you have to resolve that and then do Kiva. And basically, your information should be coherent. For example, if you submit the registration document, it should be on your name. And I know this may look kind of obvious for all of us, but it's not for many. So sometimes we get applications that have other names and they don't match with the documents they're importing. So all those things, delay the process. So, but if you put everything you need to put in the application and ask the right questions and, meet at least half an hour or 1 hour with their team, the process is less than 1 month. So it's something really fast as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Just and just that guidance. Sometimes, sometimes I know I'm guilty of it, is that sometimes you assume what you know everybody knows, and sometimes
Yeah.
what we find too with a lot of our members is some of the fundamentals, and that's why we love to do these type of webinars and stuff, is just because people don't know what they don't know, and these fundamentals and these basics, sometimes people need help with that. They need a little hand holder with that. So the fact that your team is willing to take the time and get them prepared, I think is just a wonderful value add to these businesses that, again, will just help them so much moving forward. So yeah, so it's great stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you said something super important in the sense that, yes, like we cannot think anything is obvious, or we cannot assume, because obviously lots of people study different things. You can be a great artist but not necessarily know anything about running a business. And I think that's why these organizations that are helping small business owners are so important, right?
Mhm.
Last year we got a grant from Fundación Flamboyant to
Mhm.
work with different local artists, and it was an amazing experience. Because it was really challenging, because you say the word loan and people run away.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
So we've already deployed over 3 million with Kiva. We've deployed through other platforms that I will mention later on. And we're working with over 300 small business owners. Most of our small business owners don't come to us when they're starting. So that's something I want to emphasize as well. They come to us when they've been for the past 2 years maybe, and they need like an extra push because they want to grow or buy inventory, or they realize they have a really good asset in their hands and they want to grow.
Sure.
So lots of people think that all of our small business owners are like very small, or they've been like just a couple months operating. That 80% of our pipeline has been years operating sometimes.
Oh wow.
Yes, and especially because we've had so many disasters. Kiva has also been like a cash relief loan, disaster loan, in the sense that we've helped a lot of small business owners that maybe if there wouldn't be Maria or earthquakes or COVID, they wouldn't have knocked on our doors. So I think that's why we've seen such like a huge increase in the past years of small business owners that have reached out, or we have knocked on their door.
You mentioned agriculture. Are there any other sectors, verticals that are attractive to investors in Kiva? Are there any that the kind of people will shy away from? Can you kind of speak to that? Is it kind of just a little bit of everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, right now, I would say we have a little bit of everything, but the majority, like 50%, is tied to agriculture or food. And that's not right. The reason the global lenders that connect to Kiva love agriculture is because there's a huge worriness in the sense that we're not growing our own food, and if there's like emergencies and you don't grow your food, then I'm not gonna say the word, but you read my lips, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on locally, at least, and there's a lot of people supporting it. Okay. Something that's anything of our pipeline, 70% is women. So that also is like, wow. Oh, yeah. And that's also something that lots of people globally like to support. Right now we have a lot of designers, a lot of artists, a lot of authors that have established book editing companies in Puerto Rico and are publishing content. It's like, wow, this is amazing.
That's awesome.
So
now, in terms of investor, now when it comes to business in Puerto Rico, and obviously the people looking to invest in businesses are global, is there a specific area that's primarily interested in investing in Puerto Rico? Like, is it primarily from the US or is it international? Like, where are these investors coming from?
20% of the investors that lend in Kiva are usually from Puerto Rico or from La Diaspora. Okay. Other 80% are just people around the world. Okay. Germany, any place in the United States, any place in Europe. It's crazy. It's interesting. And sometimes I always feel like Kiva has like this added value that you can market yourself. We've had, for example, the example I put in the chat is Isleña, Carla. I don't know if you know her. but she did Kiva, and a person from Germany messaged her so she could buy her sandals and sell them in Germany.
Wow.
So that was like, wow, when things like that happen, it's extra amazing.
No, that's amazing. That is.
And then I think, looking at the time, I want to talk a little bit more of, what's after Kiva, right?
Right.
Through Causa Local. So, we're growing also with the small business owners.
Sure.
And, many of them have repaid and they're like, okay, what's next? I need more money. So we partner up with SBA. We're really good partners with Popular and Startup Popular and all the incubators that are giving cash grants, right? But then we discovered what's WeFunder and what's Republic. So they are these platforms where you can raise capital, right? So it's not necessarily loans, it's more of investment. So anybody that's here listening to us, you're like, what's an investment, right? What does it mean to raise capital? So we have this example that I love to mention because it's an amazing story. His name is Jose Munoz, and he is one of the founders of Ron Artesano, right? And Ron Artesano is a delicious rum that is produced in Jayuya. And wait, sorry, but I'm looking right now for the link.
No, I've been trying to get my hands on a bottle. They don't ship here to the US.
And for the people in Puerto Rico, they're actually right now Produce. You can order them through Produce or like in different supermarkets, by the way. Okay. But yes. The thing is, I met him, I bumped into him, and he, we literally had coffee, talked about access to capital, and he's like, Ana, I don't it's this, or I have to close my business, Wow. And I was like, okay, you can't close your business. You have to, you have an amazing product, So we started brainstorming a little bit. And remember I mentioned Johnny and Justin from Kiva that are now working in WeFunder, right? Sorry, I'm gonna look for this really fast. So, he was the first Puerto Rican to do WeFunder. He raised almost $300,000. And, he was basically starting his business. He didn't have anything, and that's like the beauty of it, because you don't have anything to demonstrate to traditional investors. So they're going to be like, no, I can't taste this. I can't look at it. Then I'm not going to invest in it. But at the same time, you need money to be able to taste it and make the bottle and pay for all these startup costs. So, WeFunder is an amazing platform. You can raise up to $5 million, right?
Wow.
So you deal with lots of micro angel investors. For example, you and me can also invest in small business owners, and you become a small micro angel investor, and you support this small and medium-sized business. WeFunder supports all types of businesses. The story of where they come from and how they did it, it's amazing. That they were in back and forth with the SEC for many years. I think it was like 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, trying to get, that SEC allowed that you and me, people like you and me, could invest in all these small businesses that have amazing ideas that it's either that or they're gonna close or never start. Right. So it's a little bit more complicated in the sense that you have to have financial statements according to GAAP, right? And you have to have all this additional documentation that you should have either way, right? Because at the end of the path, you're going to need it. So the small business owners usually need a little bit more hand-holding with this process, and we've learned along the way as well. But basically, is these people that invest in you, they get a percentage of the ownership of this company, right? And there's different models and different ways you can raise capital. But there's also different ways that as an investor, you get repaid, right? Because not all of these companies are going to go public or they're going to be sold, right? So there's a lot of mechanisms, but the real reason I'm in love with this platform is because you have access to investment. Right, that you have access, and this access is open to all. So there's always been more. Usually different small business owners have access to different types of capital, right? And there's nothing that's open to everyone. And that's why I love the talking about democratizing access to capital, right? And I really feel it's the base of economic development. So if you haven't checked out WeFunder, I think it's amazing. You definitely have to. We also have a checklist for WeFunder.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. So this is another platform that you and your team can kind of help a business kind of navigate and make sure everything is aligned. And is it similar to Kiva in that it's kind of like almost like a social media platform kind of where people go on and can kind of
because right now you can go to WeFunder and you can look for businesses to invest. Like it's amazing. It's like, okay, let's shop around. The only thing is, and that's also the only thing is that it's a little bit more complicated, you know. You need to work on a video, on content of your business, pictures. You need to provide more numbers, more financial information. Like I mentioned, you need GAAP financial statements, a balance sheet, an income statement, statement of cash flow, statement of stockholders' equity. And you need all this other information, and you need to make decisions internally as well. For example, it's better if you have a board of directors. Well, if you don't have one, then you have to create one, right? So it's a bit of, it's a little bit more complicated, but it's not impossible. Ron Artesano, first Puerto Rican that did it, they were not numbers people. They were just really good at what they did with the rum. They know a lot about rum, but all this they learned and they navigated and they did it. The campaign, usually Kiva moves really fast alone. WeFunder, in the beginning, the small business owner has to make additional effort to move the campaign, and then it will run on its own. But at the beginning, the small business owner is required to move it a little bit and start raising capital. But it's a great option. And like I mentioned, when Jose and his team did it, they were starting. They didn't have the product.
I think I remember him running his campaign. I wasn't familiar with the platform, but I was following him on various social media channels, and I remember hearing about it. Now, is this similar to Kiva in that it's for profits and nonprofits? Is it just for profits or? Yes,
actually, I mean, WeFunder, Kiva is also a nonprofit, 0% interest. Kiva lives off grants, just like I do. But WeFunder, the investors, they get a return, and WeFunder stays with a percentage. WeFunder, the organization, also helps you. And they're kind of like growing as well. Like they've grown a lot in the past year. So they're also like figuring out their model. In the sense that, should they increase their partnerships? Should they create something like what Kiva has, that it's like different camps? It's a little different, but at the same time, it preserves the essence that you have access to all these people around the world. Puerto Rico is small. So if we stay limited to these wonderful walls, of beach and mountains, we need to access more people. So I think both of those platforms are amazing. And Republic is also similar to WeFunder, and probably if both of them hear me, they would be like, no, WeFunder is different than Republic, and Republic is different than WeFunder. But it's also a startup that is passionate about access to capital and democratizing the same. So check it out. Let me also send you the link here before I forget. But basically,
we'll be sure to share all this with everybody registered. So
we have all this information. You can reach us, reach out before, and then we can guide you. Usually when we start, did I send you the one with Ron Artesano?
I believe you did.
Yeah, okay.
Or no, that was with Kiva. No, yeah, I don't think you did.
Yeah, I
You want to put that in the chat.
Yeah, okay, I'll get that. So basically, feel free to reach out to us, to write to us, and just ask for guidance. We have this amazing survey we initially use when we're meeting a small business owner, because sometimes they may think they need a certain thing, but they need something else.
Right.
That's so important, that initial conversation that we have with them. And at the end of the day, it's this all has been the best decision I've made, but it has not been easy. Like entrepreneurship, it is not easy. It's very uphill at first. and throughout, right? But it's if it's your passion, I think it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful. And again, for everybody listening, reach out. If you have any questions, just reach out to Ana. Like, they'll guide you. That's why they're there. Their team will let you know and put you in the right position, and basically hold your hand a little bit and get you prepared to be able to obtain that capital. So it's just wonderful, wonderful information.
I really briefly want to also mention that we have Fuck Up Nights once a month. Fuck Up Nights, it's an event I used to host when I worked at Piloto. And then when I left, we kind of like paused it because everybody was like, with a million things. And then this past year, we said, you know what, we need to do something because we're all locked up. And people need to be able to connect again. So Fuck Up Nights is an initiative from Mexico City originally, and Piloto has a franchise here in Puerto Rico, and we run the event, and D2A or any other partner sponsors it, right? And we have it once a month. We invite 3 small business owners or professionals to talk about their fuck-ups, right? Because we want to know the stories. We want to learn from them. We want to get inspired, and it's also a great way to connect all ages, all industries. It's usually a great meetup, and we just had one last night. I've
been following the events, and I wish I could be there in person. I'm sure I'll catch them when I'm down there moving forward. But it just looks like great stories. Just looks like a wonderful time to interact with people, learn from their mistakes, learn from what worked, what didn't, and I look forward to that to continue to grow, and hopefully, and as Causa Local plans these events, we'll have them in our calendar as well, so our members can see them. If you happen to be in Puerto Rico, be sure to join and get to know Ana and the whole team. So.
And something I also want to mention, feel free to, follow us, like Causa Local, and you guys in social media. Share our content. I am very excited about the next workshops we're going to be delivering in December with you guys. Today we kind of like, talked about what we know best, to be honest. And then next week we're going to go a little bit more in detail of different topics.
So again, we'll again, if you haven't registered for, we have 2 more webinars in December with Ana. So we'll be sure to remind you, share those links if you haven't registered. And besides that, like, just be on the lookout. We're going to be a lot of work that we're going to be able to collaborate on, a lot of really good, fun stuff moving forward. So just again, if you're not following us on social media, go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter. Same with Causa Local. Follow them on social media, visit their website, learn more. And then again, we'll share this recording with everybody who registered, and for the members who didn't, it'll be available in our video archive with all our other webinars and stuff like that. So I think with that, thank you. I look forward to our upcoming webinars. Look forward to working with you moving forward. Is there anything you wanted to add before we go ahead and close this out? Ana?
Sorry.
Oh no, that's all good. I was just saying, I just wanted to thank you, and I just wanted, is there anything else you wanted to add before we go ahead and close this out?
Basically, if you have a passion and you want to open a small business, now's the time. Like, I don't think there's ever been more resources for small business owners, education, capital, cash grants, anything. And we're here. Feel free to ask any question. And feel free to contact us. Very important for us to share our lessons learned, connect with our small business owners as well. And happy holidays. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Speaking to Ana's point, I think that you're not in it alone. There's so many, especially I'm just in love with the Puerto Rico small business ecosystem. Kind of what you were saying after Maria, is just so many startups and so many great ideas, and there's so much going on. So if you're in that world, if you're struggling, if you're looking to build, reach out to us. Ask. We're all in this together. If we can't help you, we know who can. And that's kind of what we take pride in. So that's kind of the beauty of of collaboration. And so again, just check us out online and register for our 2 additional webinars in December with Causa Local. And I think with that, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. And so everybody, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you.